Hi everyone. Today we're going to continue our discussion of slope, and we're going to look at the equation that we use to find the slope. Linear equations are often written in the form of y equals m times x plus b. This is called the slope-intercept form. When an equation is written in this form, m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is where the line is going to cross the y-axis. So let's take a look and kind of analyze the equation. State the slope and y-intercept of the graph of y equals x minus 3. Now remember, if there is not a number in front of that x, we can always put a 1 there, because 1 times x would equal x. So now, we're going to write the equation in the form y equals mx plus b. So now, I'm going to include that 1, because 1 is going to be my slope, and notice that I'm going to change this from subtraction to adding -3, because subtraction means add the opposite. So as I look at this in slope-intercept form, which is mx plus b, I now know that the slope of the line is 1 and the y-intercept is -3. So let's just take a look at a couple of equations here and identify both the slope and the y-intercept. So if I look at the first equation, all right, it's already y equals x plus 1. Well, again, if there's not a number there, you can always put in a 1. So that 1 is equal to the slope. So the slope of this line is 1. And then that plus 1, or plus b, is the y-intercept. So my y-intercept is also 1, and that's where it crosses the y-axis. So let's look at number 2. Y equals 2x minus 4. Well, I just want to change that to plus -4. M is 2, and that's my slope, and b is -4, and that's my y-intercept. So my slope is 2, and my y-intercept is -4. And then finally, let's take a look at number 3. Y equals 1/2 minus 1. Again, let's change this to plus -1. Okay, 1/2 is my m, that's the slope. -1 is my b, that's my y-intercept. So the slope of this line is 1/2. The y-intercept is -1. And now that we know what the equation is, we can actually then graph this without having to set up a table. So let's see how this is going to look. I have y equals 2x plus 2. So I know that m is my slope, and I know that b is my y-intercept. So let's start with the y-intercept. I know that the y-intercept is 2. The y-intercept is where the line is going to cross the x-axis, or the y-axis. So I'm going to go up 2. I'm going to stay at 0. I'm not going to move along x. So I'm going to go up 2, and that's my y-intercept. And that would be 0, 2. Now that I know my y-intercept, I can graph this line because my slope is 2. So remember that I am going to go up 2 and over 1, because remember, slope is always that rise over run. So I'm going to go up 2 and over 1, and then I'm just going to put this point right here as well. I am going to go down 2 and to the left 1. That still keeps that as being a positive slope. So now that I have 3 points, I'm going to connect these 3 points, and this will be the slope or the line of that equation. So all of the points on this line will make that equation true. You should actually be using a ruler to do this. So let's look at number 5. I'm going to just rewrite this as y equals negative 1x plus negative 1. I know that my y-intercept is going to be negative 1. I know my slope is also negative 1. So I'm going to start at my origin. My y-intercept is negative 1, so I'm going down 1 because that's where it's going to cross the y-axis. So again, that's 0, negative 1. Now, remember that because this has a negative slope, this line's going to go down. So I'm going to, when I go to graph this point, remember that it is still rise over run, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up, but I'm going to go to the left because my slope is going to be negative. And then if I go up and to the left, my slope is negative. So remember, when we are graphing these, I always want to rise, but if it's a positive slope, I'm going to go to the right, but if it's a negative slope, I'll go to the left. And then again, you want to connect the points with a line, and that's the graph of that equation. All right, let's take a look at the last example here. Again, 1/2 is my slope, and 2 is my y-intercept. So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go up 2. So there's my y-intercept. That's where it's going to cross the y-axis. My slope is 1/2. So remember, I'm going to go up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. And then I'm going to connect with a line. Okay. And that's all there is to graphing using the slope-intercept form. Make sure you finish up your Google form and bring any questions you have to class tomorrow.